Welcome to my show. This is Frank's Guests Talk and Music Show. Today we're going to be introducing to you the ladies from Geisha and a man from Geisha. We've got a program coming up on the weekend. Is it this weekend or next weekend?
This weekend.
This weekend, the Japanese Ozaishiki party. And today we're going to learn about geisha.
Yes.
But first we're going to be playing for you some music from Japan, where geisha comes from.
本人夏をかたしいや夏を先利用しますから形を取ってください嬉しい
Hi, this is Steve Rogers, as I'm usually known in Totnes, but Hachisaru, the lotus monkey of Hachitzuki, your local geisha house, where nobody is too pretty because everybody should always be as pretty as they can be. That was a really good way to start, because that's of course not really a Japanese record. That's a real Japanese judo master, and that's I think real Japanese school children, but that was recorded in Paris in 1971 by Daft Punk's dad. Yeah, really, yeah.
People all over the place have been influenced by Japan.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm Emily Rogers. My geisha name is Hachiko, which means lotus, little lotus. And I'm the Okasan, the mother of the Totnes Geisha House.
I'm Jade Hendrickson normally, but in the Oki I'm known as Tsuki-san, and it means moon. And I mainly serve. I enjoy bringing people the drinks and just generally helping everybody else do their thing.
Suki-san's also the auntie of the house, so she helps look after all the people who are learning with us. So yeah, that first track there was called The Chairman's Waltz. It's from the film Memoirs of a Geisha, and it's what Memoirs of Geisha is, the film that we find people have generally watched. You know, that's their introduction to the geisha world, which is quite ironic, really, because Memoirs of a Geisha was written by an American man. So, not particularly deep insight into matriarchal society, would you say, Suki-san?
Not at all, no.
And of course, it was written as a novel. So, of course, they
sensationalised a lot of aspects and totally misinterpreted others.
Yeah, because of course everybody wants a happy ending, where the girl gets the guy and stuff. But actually, geisha are very much devoted to their art and don't really have much time for romance. The modern ones, do they?
Not at all. They get 1 day off a month. It's not really a relationship experience.
More of a devotional path.
Absolutely, you could almost call them nuns in the fact that they just do not have time for outside experiences or relationships that aren't connected to the okya and the day-to-day workings.
Yeah.
Shall we forward to the next song?
No, you are.
Yeah.
What do you think? You came over and watched a movie with us the other day, didn't you? You've seen Memoirs of a Geisha, Frankie.
Yeah.
What did you think of Memoirs of a Geisha?
I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's very beautiful, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it is. It's got wonderful music and colour and photography. It's very elegant, isn't it?
But the director was the director of that one. You were saying
it's directed and choreographed by the team that did Chicago, I believe.
It definitely has that kind of dramatic element to it, doesn't it?
It's very popular, according to reports that I've heard. That it's a good introduction to geisha. But do you think it's good for geisha?
What do you think,
I wouldn't say it was good for geisha. It's it brought the name out. People now know what you're talking about, but they still have a very skewed idea of what it actually means.
Yeah, and in fact, the lady the geisha herself, Arthur Golden, the person who wrote the book, The Memoirs of a Geisha, he interviewed a lot of different geisha, and they all said, yes, we'll help you, but please don't mention our names because we're not supposed to talk about our experiences. They're very personal ones and to do with the community. So, unfortunately, he took one of the life stories that he was told and used that as the main plot of the movie and then credited her in the book saying thank you so much, which was embarrassing for her, but also on top of that it kind of made the whole thing sound like it was a story, whereas it was a lot of sort of sexual sensational aspect to it, and which didn't reflect her life at all. And so when the Memoirs of a Geisha came out, the geisha, the book, geishas were really upset about that, not just because of the fact that she had told her secret, but also because he had sensationalised it.
Yeah, and broken his word.
Yes.
And when you're working in such close-knit society, breaking your word is the worst thing you can do.
Well, particularly in Japan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The book would have been a bit more informative, is that right?
It could be
And
a lot more
misleading.
informative, but it was a work of fiction. That's what you have to remember. This was not an anthropology, this was not an autobiography, this was a work of fiction based loosely on real life experiences.
Yeah.
And it's like reading anything that's been put 200 years in the past. We put our own skewed view of it because society has moved on, and this was a Western man taking a view of a completely different culture and a matriarchal society. I feel he missed some very important points.
It's difficult for someone who's so far removed from actually what's going on to really understand the nuances of what is happening. I mean, when somebody performs any action, their motivation is very hard to figure out, especially if they come from a very different country and a very different upbringing. I think the book has got more detail in it, just like most books, that movies are based on, have. But again, a lot of the detail is sexually sensualised, and made dramatic for the attention of the plot.
Also, one of the things that I think is most negative about Memoirs of a Geisha is that it emphasises women fall out and bitching and plotting against each other. Whereas in the Japanese geisha house, there's not so much of that. They're working too hard for that to work.
Well, and they live in tiny little houses, and if you live in a community with people anyway, you have to behave yourself. But if you're living in a tiny little Japanese house, then you have to behave yourself even more. So, and women are quite good at living together. But it wasn't that book that drew me to the geisha path. It was a book that actually Suki-san gave me, which was called Geisha by Lisa Dalby, who was an anthropologist, and she went over to Japan to study geisha. She thought they were really interesting, and her book has got lots of detail in it, but it's genuine detail, it's a really interesting book to read because she lived it for a while. The main geisha mother of the house that she was going to find out about things said, look, she said Japanese are very down to earth, really, and also very straightforward with you. And she said, look, you're not really going to understand this life unless you live it a bit. So actually, Lisa Dalby became the first Western geisha, if you like. So she lived it. She had an older sister. She wasn't there for very long, but she really got to understand what it was like to stay with someone. And I think we could all agree that when we might have friends and stuff, but if we go and stay with them for a few days in their house, we get to know them on a different level.
Can I just mention there's one more book as well as Lisa Dalby's book, which is excellent. She's an excellent writer, as well as having lived the life. It's a really good book, Geisha. But the other book, which is really fantastic, is of course Mineko's book. The lady who spoke to Arthur Golden for Memoirs of a Geisha was really forced to publish her own autobiography.
Yes, she has done, yes.
To set the record straight, which is called Geisha of Gion, and that is amazing.
It is,
and that actually shows the real tragedy of things that can go wrong in a geisha house. And funnily enough, the thing that went the most badly wrong in her geisha house is one of the geishas had a son.
Yeah.
Put a man into a geisha house who feels he has a right to live there, and he will cause chaos.
Well, that's why you're called Lotus Monkey, darling.
Yeah. Just to remind me, there's not
heads up.
Not much good I can do. I'll just stand out of the way.
惚れてかように何怖かろう今宵も会おうと闇の夜道をただ一人咲ゃさほどにも思いやせぬのに紅茶登り詰め山を越えて会いに行くどうした縁でかの人に毎晩会うたら嬉しかろう実動すりゃ座れる縁者やらじれったいね
So those were three very traditional pieces of music. The first one was from kabuki called Musume Dojoji, meaning the maiden of the temple. That's the one with I think she turns into a demon over the bell, doesn't she? At some point, it's very dramatic. A lot of geisha arts. In Japan, you know, there aren't so many people going to kabuki theatre and no theatre and things like that anymore. But so then the geisha arts can seem quite strange even to Japanese people. You know, they don't really understand. But a lot of them are rooted in traditional arts, like the tea ceremony.
Yep.
The
dancing,
ikebana, which is like flower arranging, but in a Zen way, so that there's sort of shape and space at the same time. What do you think of other things?
Origami,
Cooking.
Yeah, cooking. Yeah, so Taikamochi loves to eat, does she?
Oh, yeah.
we call Hachisaru a Taikamochi, which means male geisha, and because the first geisha were actually men.
Yeah.
They were the drum bearers, and their job was to big up the shogun or the master who was around, and also, you know, take the mick out of him a little bit too, to lighten the flavour. And they say in top geisha circles that a geisha party really isn't complete without a taikamochi.
Sure, so true.
Why would you say it's not complete without a taikamochi, Hachisaru?
Because everybody is so respectful. The geisha work so hard. They dress up so carefully. The dances are so amazing. Everything's so divine. They're all so overawed, you know. And it's a little bit. It could be a bit frosty,
okay.
You know, but the taikamochi just comes in and takes the mickey.
Right. Yeah.
So that makes a nice bridge between the guests and the geisha.
Yeah, and of course, a good taikamochi has actually has been working with those geisha for a long time, so he knows them like sisters, and so, you know, he can laugh and joke with them, and they're not intimidated.
I'm quite intrigued by the fact that in the early days it all started with men artists, because in the West it was pretty much the same. The men would dress as women. There was hardly ever a woman known to do the art. And
yes.
Have you mentioned the name of geisha, the meaning of the word itself?
Yeah.
No, we haven't today.
Geisha is made of two parts. One is ge, which means art, and sha means person. So it's not actually referring to female or male. And in fact, in Kyoto, where the traditions of the geisha, there are geisha all over Japan, but in Kyoto they do keep more of a old capital feel to what they do, and they call their geisha geiko, which means arts girl or art. Yeah. So then you know the difference then from that perspective. I looked at Suki-san then. It's all it takes.
In modern times, there was a law in the 19th century banning women from acting in kabuki theatre, so it's created quite a nice situation really, where the women are now the geisha and the men are the kabuki actors, and so when geisha do leave the profession, they often marry a kabuki performer because they both have roots in the same age of tradition.
Yes,
and they understand each other's world. They both have a meditative approach to what they do, and they both use the same type of makeup too.
Yeah, they do. We at Hachitzuki, we do take the traditional arts very seriously. One thing I love about the geisha path is that it's an art that's developed in stages, and actually you can see how far a geisha has gone along her training by what she's wearing. You know, the colours that are in her collar, what sort of obi what sort of tying of her kimono she has, the obi. So you can get very geeky about it. And go, oh look, there's that person, she's at this stage, and I think also as an artist, particularly for young women, who you know, a lot of what young women are shy, and you know, we've had women's lib around, but I think the trouble is about women's lib in a sort of patriarchal society is that people go, oh yeah, great, women can be liberated to be like men, and actually, you know, maybe, you know, that's not liberation, you know, maybe you know, some, you know, so then I think a lot of young women find it difficult to know how to be, you know, pretty when they outgrow the Disney princess stage. Where do they go, you know? And so I think that taking the path seriously and developing a practice of traditional art and being sort of acknowledged when you get to the next level is actually really psychologically nurturing for
and
an
empowering.
artist.
You know, even though I'm not doing the training, I'm not doing the makeup, I'm staying very sort of on the sidelines, but just watching everyone else do it. And, you know, we've had a couple of stepping up ceremonies where we really acknowledged the work that's gone into it. And it's joyful.
Yeah. It really
and
is.
it just makes you feel good to be able to be part of that. You know, I have daughters, and I really, you know, I want to empower them just to be themselves and do their own thing. And this is one way of doing it.
One thing as well that we found is because when I started this, I didn't know how the Japanese people around would react, because obviously, you know, I don't have many teachers. I'm, you know, I do as much reading as research as possible, but I didn't know how they would react. So that's another reason why I've been very serious about learning the traditional dances, learning the traditional songs. I want to learn to play the shamisen. I'm studying the shakuhachi. And I'm trying to sort of demonstrate really that I'm taking this very seriously, you know, so that the shape means something. And I think that's the Japanese community has actually recognised that, and as a result, they're very pleased with what we're doing.
Yeah.
コンピラ船船置いて2本上げてシュラシュシュシュ回れば四国三州中の森上手さんコンピラ大権現一つ回ればコンピラ船船置いて2本上げてシュラシュシュシュ回れば四国三州中の森上手さんコンピラ大権現一つ回ればコンピラ船船置いて2本上げてシュラシュシュシュ回れば四国三州中の森上手さんコンピラ大権現一つ回ればコンピラ船船置いて2本上げてシュラシュシュシュ回れば四国三州中の森上手さんねえ何回やって同じだからもうやめようよね
取れば思い出す大津たちからの心意気知るや知らんね玉垣に残る二人の影もしいい月だわね。ごらんなさいなこの景色を。心は闇だって。ええ、そりゃ世間も闇だって構いませんわ。別れてくれ。冗談じゃ。あなたなさそうね。本当なのね。切れるの別れるのってそんなことは芸者の時に言うものよ。私には死ねと言ってください。ツタに別れろとおっしゃいましな。忘れられようかつついずつ岸の柳の縁結び固い地にをぎゆれに水に流すも江戸育ち青いガスと境内を寝れば本を切り通し隅への上の山三味線麦でシャシャリツシャンシャンさあさあ踊ろうよブギウギウキウキ吹いた吹いたよシャシャリツシャンシャン踊るアホに踊らなアホだよ同じアホなら踊らにゃそんだよさあさあ猫も杓子もブギウギあちょんとブギウギ三味線麦でシャシャリツシャンシャンさあさあ踊ろうよブギウギ好き好きハローベイビーシャシャリツシャンシャン ギウギ三味線麦でシャシャリツシャンシャンさあさあ踊ろうよブギウギ好き好きパッと踊ってシャシャリツシャンシャン花と名付きゃ何でも好きだよ物を言う花一番好きだよさあさあ鳥も蝶々もブギウギはちょいとブギウギ
Wow, that was good. That sounded very westernized, if you ask me.
Yeah. that one was recorded by Umikichi, and she's a genuine geisha. Geisha do all sorts of things in modern day. They and they're often, asked to go and advertise things like, I don't know, Kit Kats or noodles or beer or whatever. Yeah, it's just different things. But definitely, when Westerners started coming to Japan, Japan was closed for a long time, wouldn't allow foreigners in. When the Japan was starting to be influenced by the West, the geisha didn't really know what to do to begin with, because they were purveying traditional art, but also geisha used to be like the trendsetters. Nowadays in Japan, I meet so many Japanese people, and maybe they have a kimono, maybe they don't. But even if they do, often they don't know how to put it on anymore, because it's not a regular practice in Japan anymore. But it used to be that they would all be wearing different types of kimono. And in that, the geisha would be trendsetters. Like if a geisha, wore their obi in a particular way, or the different styles or colours in the fabric, or combinations of stuff. They used to be basically like the divas of the fashion show, and people would say, "Wow, that geisha has done that," and then everybody would do it. They would copy them. So when the Westerners came in, they didn't quite know what to do, because they were thinking, well, maybe this Western influence, people are becoming more interested in this. Perhaps, we need to go along with that and echo the fact that people are interested in this new Western influence. So for a while, geishas actually dressed up in, those Victorian bustle dresses. And they learned couple dancing, because that was something that was never done in Japan. So but people
still... This is westernizing, isn't it?
Yeah. They
sounds like they're picking up on folk music, basically.
Yeah, but also like ballrooms, because we wanted to start having balls like we do in the West. And so the geisha, a lot of Japanese women would never dance maybe not in public, because actually Japanese wives would tend to stay in the home, and Japanese daughters would tend to stay in the home, and they certainly wouldn't dance so close to another person, even if they were married to them, in public. So then that meant, okay, people want dancers at these balls, we're going to have to get the geisha to do them. So the geisha went through a stage where, they'd have the white faces and the wigs, but they'd be wearing a bustle dress and being able to couple dance. And so for a while that kind of went on, but then they decided that they couldn't move on from that, and they could recognise that in traditional arts in Japan were really important to preserve, particularly with all of the extra influences coming in. So they decided to go back the other way and become the people who actually preserved the traditional arts of Japan.
Stick to the Japanese roots, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Which was a big change for them, because up until then, they had been trendsetters, and
I heard that they're classed as high status, like they are like movie stars. They've got the same status. They're very popular. They're heard about everywhere in Japan. They're not just they're private people, but they're celebrities in their own way.
Definitely, particularly if a girl sticks to it. I mean, obviously, to begin with, she would hope to be taken in by a good house, and then if a good geisha mother would adopt, they basically adopt the girls. In Japan, they actually take all of their identification. I don't know what the paperwork is in Japan, but the geisha mother takes that from the actual biological mother and becomes the mother of that girl. And then the girl would, and then if it's a good geisha mother, she'd have connections with high geisha around, and she'd be able to approach someone who was well thought of to adopt her new one as their little sister. And then they'd have to be very careful, because they wouldn't want to mess anything up for their older sister who had a good reputation. So that's a bit stressful, but it does mean that they would get to go to the good parties, and like you say, their name would start to be more and more known. They'd get booked for different things, and so things would go well for them.
And there's also the traditional shows they would put on.
Yeah.
Sorry, the traditional shows that they put on for the spring festivals and things, where they put on dance recitals where they have individuals dances, and the more well-known geishas would be given the higher status roles. And they even put on almost kabuki-like plays, but all by geisha, so they played the male parts as well as the female parts. And you could only get a good role if you had done well and worked hard the year before. So if you were well-known, you got a good part, which made you more well-known. And then, and if you weren't that well known, you got chorus line, and if you were really unknown, you sat in the audience. So it was a great motivator to work hard.
Well, those last two tracks we played were both composed by a geisha called Ichimaru, which means the first big one, really top-notch one. And she was an interesting person because she became an independent geisha after her training, and after she'd paid back for her training in the house, and because of modern times, she was able to move her music from the small banquet rooms into recording, and became a very famous recording artist because she was already well placed as a geisha. She had good contacts. She was able to really, really step out like that and become independent, and eventually become just a recording artist. And so the last one we played was recorded by Umikichi, who is a modern geisha who's alive today and recording things. And so she's recording that almost as a homage to her big sister, who has been influenced by Western music and just bringing a lot of joy and embracing into different things like that. Yeah.
So she's inspired by her older sister.
Yes. Yeah.
I like the way that that Japanese musical culture has a great ability to just absorb foreign influences and work with them, and as you say, joyfully, not worrying about being overwhelmed. They have a great confidence in their own tradition, which they don't feel like they have to grab hold of it, because they just trust it, that it's there. In a way, actually, I've always felt that Japan and Britain have a lot in common. They're a group of islands, one to the northwest and one to the southeast of a big, powerful continent, who've kept their own status and their own identity, and they've even conquered half the big continent or large parts of the world at some time. There's something quite special about these cultures, and we're both made up of so many races. The Japanese are part Ainu, the original indigenous people, part Korean, part Chinese. Then they've had all these other influences in modern times that have come in from Europe and from America. But somehow or other, the strength of the Japanese identity is just like a diamond. It doesn't seem to be. You can't bend it.
Oh yeah. It's been interesting with this. Like I say, to begin with, I didn't have any Japanese friends. Well, now I have lots of Japanese friends, and I'm trying to learn the language, which is really slow. But that aspect of the Japanese has been quite formidable when I've been trying to, learning to communicate and work with them. They've been very open and friendly, yet very strong in themselves, which has been which again, it's an interesting thing to encounter, because I think a lot of people, very shy, and but they're shy and kind of introverted, and maybe a little confused about where their place is, whereas I find a lot of my Japanese friends, they are where they are. It's like you might want to, even if you wanted them to do something different, they're not going to move from where they want to be. So you have to come to them, which is great, which means that you go to where their power is, which is another thing that I admire about practicing traditional arts, because it's about generating, a real presence of mind,
Japanese is embedded in the brains, isn't it? It's very strong in their culture, just as the West have the performing arts, except it might be a bit more private, and I think we're time for another song now.
Yeah, totally.